good to go. Hello and welcome to what looks a little like the Jackanory studio, but I promise you we'll be doing none of that. No, this is an attempt to demonstrate that isolating doesn't necessarily mean isolation. So this is a Table Football Monthly lockdown special, and in essence that means we've got no Danielle and no Smithy. Hi both, looking forward to having you both back as soon as possible. So what I've done is I've tried to put a bit of a programme together for you, all on me Todd here in the studio, because we're British, we make do, and I'm sure it'll be fine. So what have we got for you? Well, before the travelling restrictions were brought about by that virus, Andy and I had started on a feature about Subbuteo Goals, starting with the metal goals with brown netting that Peter Adolph released in the late 40s, right up to the metal goals a lot of us use today. So we've got that. In addition, we are able to do 3 requests this time round. Normally, we don't have time, but this time it's my pleasure to fulfill them. The first is for Carl Headley. He wrote an email a few weeks ago about all sorts of things, but as a PS, he put, it would be great to see a Subbuteo recreation of Ian Porterfield's goal for Sunderland against Leeds in the 1973 FA Cup final. Carl, it's a pleasure to do that. We're going to do it and more because we happen to have a few bits already lying around. Secondly, Michael, who's been torturing himself and having sleepless nights trying to recall a game that was a forerunner to Striker. Well, he remembered it and we found it. There it is, Kicker Goal or Kika Goal. I have to give due credit to Paul Woosley at oldfootballgames.co.uk as he's the one who sourced it. I'm just the one who's going to open it and demonstrate it. So thanks, Paul. And on the subject of Paul and the site, and whilst we're all at home and you've got time in your hands, I really do recommend it. I've been looking around it now for a few days. So there's the website title below, oldfootballgames.co.uk, because there are also items for sale there as well. But the reason I'm plugging it so hard is Paul has managed to help me personally achieve a little bit of an ambition. Last month, Danielle and I did a feature on mechanical games, and the biggest part of that feature was Kasdan. Now this is the box that most of us know. Kasdan Soccer and Sir Bobby Charlton in his red top, looking very happy. Well, before this, the box came out and it was called Kasdan Football. And Bobby Charlton appears here in blue. Scandal, shock, horror. Somebody must have said, Bobby, don't you think a red top would be more suitable? Well, thanks, as I mentioned to Paul, he was able to supply this to me this week. Fantastic, I'm really chuffed with it. So thanks, Paul. Right, now where had I got to? Oh yes, the third request was for this big game behind me here. We had an email saying, couldn't help noticing there was a big football box behind you. What is that? We'll do a little demo of that later on. Now, a quick word about prizes. The competition we ran last month to win the Astro-based starter kit, that's got to run, for reasons of fairness, its full course to the end of the month before we draw a winner. But because we're Table Football Monthly and generous to a fault, there will be a little competition, a little cheeky competition today. And that'll be to win these 2 teams that are very unlikely to be in your set of international teams. We have Tanzania and we have American Virgin Islands. Now these limited edition teams are rather special. They were created by Subbuteo World at the turn of the century in association with Adelio Parodi, Zugo. So I'll get these 2 teams on a pitch later on, demonstrate them for you, and if you would like them in your collection, then we'll have a little competition for that. Well, that's not all bad for a lockdown edition, is it? So we'll get started. Enough chit chat from me in my special Ronnie Corbett chair. We'll start with our look at the history of Subbuteo Goals. How do you know I'll be here?
Oh, every month, mate.
Every month we meet just here. Same time, same place. Right,
Same
one,
shirt.
one guess, or one guess only. Today's topic,
Banana bread, my favourite. Gotta be. Please.
Every month, I wonder why I do this. No, our topic is goals.
Goals win games?
You're not wrong, but we're not
No.
talking about those kind of goals. We're talking about these.
Ah.
Posts, crossbars,
Nets.
always nets.
Oh, yes.
We're going to be looking at the history of goals from primarily Subbuteo, from way back in the 40s, right up to the present day, with the metal goals made by independents such as Pegasus and Astro Base. Fancy a bit of that?
Oh, yes, please.
What do you want to do? Talk about it or demonstrate it?
Demonstrate, I think.
Race, you're there.
Right then.
Where to start? Well, the first goal, released by Peter Adolph, before he'd even adopted the name Subbuteo, was a metal frame goal with paper or card netting. Now that's of less interest to us. As Subbuteo folk, we like goals with nets. And this was the first one released by Subbuteo in the late 40s. It's a metal frame, the posts and the crossbar are covered with white acetate, whereas the back is left as bare metal. The brown netting fits beautifully. Here we have one of the early box sets from the 49 to 53 period, and buried beneath all of this paperwork are a pair of gorgeous goals. Imagine receiving these as a young boy immediately post-war. These first netted goals were continued through to 58-59, and when laid out on a stunning baize pitch, remind me of those early Wembley days.
Mortensen to Jackie Sewell, and as cool as they come, he bangs it into the visitors' net for the equaliser. But don't make any mistake, these Hungarians didn't win the Olympics final or their second-to-none reputation for nothing. Here they go again, with some of the most perfect teamwork ever seen on the green grass of Wembley. From the wing, Bosic races in and cracks home Hungary's fifth goal.
Love these goals and still use them now. They were replaced in 58-59 by Subbuteo's first plastic goals, set N. Same size as the metal goals, same well-fitted nets, and quite robust, so long as you didn't accidentally kneel on them. Plus, an option to avoid holding the goals down. Goal grips! What's more, they work. We've used blue tack on these tests, as we'll be needing to swap goals quite frequently. These set-in plastic goals ran forever, from the flats to the early heavyweights. Here we have Wolves against Manchester United, the 60s box sets, onto the big showpiece sets, into the 70s with the indoor edition, through the zombie period with sets like this 78 World Cup edition, into the 80s and the 90s here with an early Lineker. In fact, they ran all the way up to the sale of Subbuteo from Waddington's to Hasbro. Over time, the brown net spawned white, red and an attractive green and white version. And off the pitch, set N goals also featured in the 1982 training set with the yellow target board made to measure. As many of you will know, Subbuteo were renowned for releasing accessories, be it fencing, floodlights, scoreboards, ball buoys, you name it. But we had to wait until 1969 before Subbuteo released a new netted goal. And it was this one, C122, known as the fixture goal. Now this goal is more base than goal. One of the reasons for that might be it shares a base with the Subbuteo rugby goal. It was the first time we saw rounded posts. Now this goal has several separate pieces and can be a little fragile. A drop of glue on the joins will solve that. One useful addition on these continental fixture goals was the inclusion of fixing holes, making the need for goal grips redundant. In an effort to maintain perspective, I've tried to keep this real. So we have the original cotton Subbuteo pitch, we have the original corner flags, we have the 25mm ball. So the goal is being demonstrated in proper context. Now, although the crossbar is a couple of mil lower than on the N series plastic goal, that of itself shouldn't make a difference. What does make a difference is the size of the base. It makes the goal look dwarfed on the pitch, at least to my eyes. Love the rounded posts and crossbar, the net fits well, the net is a good scale. But I just don't get the same joy. If you are lucky enough to chip the ball into the top corner, you want to feel that you've achieved something. It's important to Subbuteo players, when we do get that chip over the keeper, that we get the buzz. If the goal doesn't look right, it just doesn't feel the same. But whatever the failings of C122, C130 more than made up for them. These came out in 72-73 and are, of course, the World Cup goals. They arrived on a far more sensibly scaled base and still included the fixing holes. They arrived with red and blue nets and no rear stanchions. I love these, and they bring back really fond memories of playing Subbuteo during the 74 Munich World Cup. If these World Cup goals do have a flaw, it's that the lack of a rear stanchion can allow them to lean back, and the thin plastic is prone to just warping slightly. But still fantastic goals, and still goals we use today. Next on our trip down memory lane, we've just had the World Cup goals of 74. In 1978, C154 was released, better known, if I can find the right box, as the tournament goals. Now these, like their 74 counterparts, don't have a rear stanchion, so the nets sit loose. Now you might be able to see, maybe if I stand it up here, you might be able to see how far back these goals are leaning. That's a combination of the thin, very thin green plastic base warping and the posts being pulled back by the net. Now, it can be avoided if you take the goals apart and store them properly between games, but who does that? So, not quite as good as the World Cup goals due to the flimsiness of the base, but let's take a look at them anyway. By 1978, of course, when we first got the tournament goals, we were into the era of the zombie. Not everybody's favourite, but still collected by many. And as well as the 25mm ball that still came in the box sets, you could get your hands on a 22mm ball as well. So we'll have a little go with that. In 1981, just as Subbuteo's lightweight teams were hitting the market en masse, there was yet another goal, C181. Now this was a self-assembly championship goal. These dastardly goals were a pain to put together and rarely sat the way they were designed on the box. These particular goals are from the FIFA World Cup edition 1982. And as you can see, they're leaning back just a bit. Not bad goals, but a bit too fiddly for me. Which means we can leap on to 1984 and another favourite of mine. 61207. These numbers are getting longer. Now these were goals that I will forever associate with Upton Park and Loftus Road.
Well stopped, in fact, by Hennessy. Robson! That was well played by Bowles to Francis and Gibbons. Back to Francis, it's a good chance here. Oh, superbly taken by Jerry Francis.
The stanchion comes out at the back, but the net drops down before it reaches the back. They're very fashionable, good-looking goals. And I always enjoyed playing with these. And until I got my first metal goals, these were my goals of choice. Much as I love these goals, in the spirit of fairness and in an attempt to provide a fair review, these goals also have a small drawback. The net is so taut and the distance from the goal line to the back of the net so small that a strong shot will always bounce back out again. And if that shot is hit hard, it leads to the age-old argument of was the ball in or not. Nice looking though. And the goals keep coming. From 1986 to 1993, you could get your hands on 61213. These gorgeous Mondial goals, as I've seen them called. Now you'll see these goals, the net goes much further back than usual, which is great because the ball tends to stay in them. They've got these two rear poles at the back that the net attaches to, and they look fabulous. If they have any negatives, it's that once again, the green base is very thin plastic and prone to warping, particularly with the pressure the back pole adds to the net. But with yellow netting on the pitch, oh, that's all you can say. Oh! Congratulations on your stamina if you're still with me. We have reached the last goal released by Subbuteo before Waddington's sold to Hasbro in the 90s. And what a lovely goal it is. This was created for Italia 90, a lovely goal that has stood the test of time well and would look great on your pitch even now. As you can see, it's a deep goal, which means the ball will be clear to see rather whether a goal has been scored or not. The stanchion runs all the way to the back, the net fits really well, and the sturdy construction prevents any real warping in the base. Now these goals were so popular, they not only appeared for Italia 90, the red, white and blue version appeared in USA 94, and again you found these goals in Euro 96. A really beautiful goal, and if your preference is for plastic goals, you won't do better than these. Let's have a look at them in action. Here we have solid one-piece plastic goals from Zugo, which attach to a strong, thick plastic base. Very sturdy indeed. Flanked by Pegasus on the left and Astro Base on the right, you can see the net is a larger scale. I like these Zugo goals. The single piece goal frame plastic construction is very sturdy. You'll have a hard job breaking those. If I do have a tiny little gripe, it's that the scale of the netting is a little bit too large for my tastes. Right, well that concludes plastic goals. It's time to go metal. Now we first got our metal goals here at the studio 2.5, 3 years ago, and we got them from Pegasus. And for us, they were real game changers. Not only are they beautifully strong, they look fantastic, they make a lovely sound when you hit the post or the crossbar, and certainly in the goals we've received from Pegasus, the nets fit beautifully and they arrive ready built. So let's have a look at some of them in action. Regular viewers will recognise them from some of our match reconstructions and certainly from the Subbuteo Challenge. My Pegasus goals are based on Subbuteo Forerunners, the World Cup goal. Obvious strength advantage to metal frames and a super thick base.
This is the left back, Fuchs, and the ball in behind Damian Bunny! It's 11! It's heaven for Jamie Vardy! That Rooney goal was enough for the 3 points. Manchester City are still alive here. Balotelli, Aguero! I swear you'll never see anything like this ever again!
3 added minutes. Can Manchester United score? They always score. Cleared, Giggs with a shot, Sheringham! Name on the trophy. 2 miss hits, really. Is this their moment? Beckham into Sheringham, and Solskjaer has won it! Manchester United have reached the promised land.
This one based on the tournament goals. Again, note the robust base. Here, the 1984 European goals. The Mundial goals. Love both, but can't help admire the strength of the Pegasus version. Now currently, if you go onto the Subbuteo World website, you're not going to see any of Pegasus goals available. I've spoken to Pete about that because I truly am a massive fan, and I think if enough of us irritate him, we may see a comeback fairly soon, fingers crossed. Now, a couple of weeks ago, I looked at a couple of metal goals from Italian firm Astrobase, which we've attached to our pitches and given them a bit of a go. Version 1 is a goal within a goal. Again, strong, resilient build, fabulous nets, and a raised bar at the back, helping maintain the integrity of the nets with plenty of room to operate the keeper. Version 2, a lovely goal. Nice, strong rear stanchion. The net is long at the back. Others prefer to cut it along the rear bar. Nice to have a choice. Clearly, comparing plastic and metal goals is a tad unfair. Even if Subbuteo had the technology to hand way back when, the cost of putting them in box sets would have been prohibitive. We have indies like Pegasus and Astrobase to thank for taking this particular technology forward, and it's a welcome evolution of our tabletop goals. Wow, that was a trip down memory lane.
Wasn't it just wonderful?
I've got no idea how many sets of goals we just tested.
A lot.
But whilst it's fresh in our minds, have you got a particular favourite?
Well, when we first started playing many moons ago, didn't have much of a choice, did we?
No, it's mainly these. Bless them.
I must admit, I do prefer the metal goals myself.
Yeah, my favourites when they first came out were the World Cup goals in red and blue, when these came out in the early 70s. If you were lucky enough to chip a shot into one of these, the goals looked fabulous. But even as a nostalgia programme, I'm with Smithy. These days, I prefer metal goals as well. They replicate the most loved styles of Subbuteo goals, but obviously they're a lot more sturdy, and they make a lovely ding when the ball hits the post or the bar.
Which you do very often.
However, if you're basing your Subbuteo on a certain era or maybe a certain World Cup, then you are spoilt for choice. And these kind of goals now on the internet auction sites are not too expensive. But all in all, I'd say that was a bit of fun, wasn't it?
Wasn't it just? Yeah, we enjoyed that.
Fancy a cup of tea and some banana bread?
Can't stand the stuff.
Some of you may have noticed the one group of goals missing from that history were those created during the Hasbro Subbuteo era. Well, let me assure you that is not a slight. The reason we've left them out is we are doing a different feature on the Hasbro Subbuteo era later in the series. So it's simply a case of we've held them back for that. Now, I mentioned at the beginning of the programme that Carl Headley had written in and said, could we do a Subbuteo recreation of Ian Porterfield's winning goal for Sunderland against Leeds in the 1973 FA Cup final? Well, yes, we can. And the reason we can is that a couple of years ago, when we made our table football documentary, we were looking at some of the more peculiar Subbuteo accessories. One being this, the VIP presentation set. I remember receiving this as a youngster and not having a clue what to do with it. This came out before the Subbuteo grandstands, so it stayed in a drawer for a very, very long time. When we finally worked out what we were going to do with it, it was Leeds and Sunderland that came to mind. We Subbuteo folk are loyal kind of chaps, so I'm not about to stand here and knock Subbuteo accessories. More share with you those that make me a little bit bewildered. So I've wandered around the studio and just picked a few at random, just for the sake of embellishing this tale. So first of all, we have two throwing goalkeepers. Now, these are not kicking goalkeepers, you understand. They're throwing goalkeepers that don't let go of the ball. Now, in the same era, Striker released a gorgeous goalkeeper that could throw the ball. Much later, Pro Action Football had a goalkeeper who could release the ball. But no, Subbuteo glued the ball to his hand. They're not all that well balanced, so relatively pointless. Now, that should be in a spotlight of its own, the Subbuteo 45. I don't know what to say about this. If you play the record whilst you are playing a game, the chances, obviously, of the sounds and the cheers matching the action on your pitch is zero, which leaves the conclusion that it must have been created for your listening pleasure. If you have listened to it, and I have, my dog singing the national anthem is more pleasing on the ears. So, we have a rather pointless but collectible 45. The cup presentation set, we'll come to that in a moment, and then the gorgeous, much loved, sought after 4 tracksuited teams. Now, I love these, so don't get me wrong, and I absolutely treasure them, but they serve no purpose. If you're setting up for a game, particularly if you're playing against a mate, he's not going to stand there while you put your tracksuited players on first for a runabout while he's waiting for the kickoff. So, rather pointless, they're not very well balanced, and they don't play very well. So back to our featured bewildering accessory. When Smithy and I were making our table football documentary, I was telling him about how I'd received this when I was 12 or 13. And I realised that 1973 was the year of the greatest cup final in the history of the tournament. Certainly one of them, Leeds against Sunderland. You have to remember at the time that Leeds were the greatest team in England. They'd been in 3 of the last 4 finals. In 1970, they lost in a replay to Chelsea. 71, that was Arsenal's double year. They beat Liverpool in the final. But in 72, Leeds beat Arsenal 1-0 with a header from Alan Clark. And in 73, everybody believed they were going to add the cup again to their trophy cabinet as they faced unfancied 2nd Division Sunderland. And surely only Bob Stokoe, his players and their fanatical fans believed for a moment that Sunderland could win. So I suddenly realised, why don't we build a royal box Then we can finally put this cup presentation to the use it was designed for. So we did, and here it is. Finally, we have a grandstand, we have a royal box, and we have a cup final worthy of a royal box. So, the dulcet tones of David Coleman, one of the best cup finals ever, and the only one in the history of the competition at Wembley to be played with an orange ball. How about that? And on top of everything else, Carl Headley gets to see the game he requested. I do like it when a plan comes together.
Every professional footballer wants to reach an FA Cup final, and Leeds are here to defend it. A grey for Leeds. Hunter powering through. And what a good recovery by Malone. There are no lost causes with this Sunderland side. They're chasing everything. John Reevy knew he'd got a match on today, and my word, Sunderland have proved that this is no ordinary second division side on what we've seen so far. In fact, it's Sunderland's first corner. Leeds United have had two. Who's with the kick? Porterfield! But the ball went loose to Porterfield. He'd got room and time, and the finish was deadly. Ian Porterfield, 1-0 after 32 minutes for second division Sunderland. Well, Leeds have known from the start they've got a real match, but now they've got real problems. Half-time, and Sunderland lead by 1 goal to nil. It's interesting to note that no northeastern team has ever been beaten in an FA Cup final at Wembley. Marini. Leeds are really pushing forward. Cherry, brilliant save, and Lorimer makes it 1 each. No. Well, really, that was astonishing. It came off the goalkeeper, the underside of the bar, and that's as close as Leeds have been and will ever be without scoring. 2 minutes of injury time gone. The referee looked at the watch, and Sunderland have won the cup from the second division. Bob Stokoe, the first to congratulate Montgomery. What a moment in football. A piece of football history, the first time in 42 years that a second division side has come to Wembley and won the FA Cup.
We did it! The VIP Cup presentation set finally gets used. Red stripes applied to an England throw-in figure, a few Sunderland players wiggled free from their bases, and the victorious Cup winners get to collect their medals from the royal box. I'll fill it up. Over the last few editions, we have reviewed a lot of new pitches, and speaking personally, I love it. I love looking at new pitches and never ever get tired of it. Well, I was talking to Pete at Subbuteo World last week, and he mentioned he had one in development, and would I like to see it? So this is a prototype. It's not full size, but I still figured you might like to have a look at it. Well, here it is, sitting atop a full-size Subbuteo table. So this is, I guess, around about half size. It's the usual PVC-backed AstroTurf from Pegasus, so everything you'd expect in terms of quality and a lovely textured finish. The different thing about this is, of course, the mowing pattern on the pitch. In squares, both ways, and a slightly more intricate diagonal version in the centre circle. Now, because it's half size, I've been thinking about how I could demonstrate it. And I've got a plan, a genuine, cunning, killing two birds with one stone plan. Our competition in this lockdown special is to win these two limited edition teams. So why don't we demonstrate those for you on this pitch? And this is a Subbuteo Milk Chocolate Mini Edition. I'm sure some of you have seen this. Its relevance is it has two small goals. We have the teams, we have the half-size prototype pitch, we have two mini goals. We can demonstrate everything at once. Oh, if only the time and motion people were here. Because these two teams are going to make up this episode's prize, you'll see they have two players displayed at the top which show in the box window. Then the bases, inners and outers, the keeper and the rest of the team are all bagged up. I don't want to ruin the pleasure you'll have opening it. So I've just assembled the two players from the window for this demonstration. I've also just grabbed two random goalkeepers off the shelf. Right, so let's see how it plays. By way of an excuse, it is freezing in here today, so my fingers are a little bit cold. Okay, let's look at the pitch first. As you'd expect, it's a beautifully smooth surface and offers lovely control. The surface encourages ambitious slides over all kinds of distances. The symmetrical pattern on the pitch in gameplay helps you place the ball. As I mentioned at the outset, this pitch is a prototype and half size. If it does go into production, and I hope it does, I think it really could be rather successful. Not only is it easy on the eye and attractive, I'm convinced that the symmetrical square mowing pattern actually aids accuracy in your play. You'll see our base has the traditional washer and the player certainly fits snugly. They really are a good looking bunch of players, front and back, and fit on their bases very well indeed. I rather like them. My gut feeling is they're going to be good and straightforward to control. I sense these are more sliding players than spinning players. But can they chip? Ooh, I think that's a yes. You don't have to take my word for any of this, because if you would like these two teams, they're absolutely free. All you have to do is enter the competition. How do you get your hands on these two rather rare teams? Well, I was giving it some thought, because I thought as we're all in lockdown, it might just be simple to say, if you'd like them, write in and we'll pull a name out of the hat. And then I was thinking, maybe you'd prefer to have a little sit down and try and solve a taxing football question. So we'll go with the latter, because as football fans, we're all familiar with the anguish, the hurt, the pain that comes when one of our favourite players joins arch rivals. Pat Jennings going from Spurs to Arsenal. Dennis Law going from Man United to Man City. So here's the question. Aston Villa and West Bromwich Albion have been arch rivals for many a decade. But in the 1970s, a goalkeeper moved from West Brom to Aston Villa and was renowned for having one of the longest throws in the game. So the question is, to win these two teams, which goalkeeper played for both West Bromwich Albion and Aston Villa in the 70s? Now, here's the catch. Because this is a lockdown special and restrictions and health allowing, I plan to do another one next week. You need to get your answers in right away. I will pull a winning name from a hat or something next week. Right, on to a little product review. We have two reviews for the price of one in this lockdown special. The first is this, Kika or Kika Goal. This is a German tabletop football game in a similar vein to Tip Kick and Schuss ins Tor that we looked at a couple of months ago, and we'll see why in more detail in a moment. This, however, is a special request from Michael. Here's the chap who had written saying, I remember this game that I saw way back when that I thought was a forerunner to Striker. Well, you're absolutely right, Michael. Let's take the lid off and we'll see why. The similarity to Tip Kick and Schuss ins Tor is apparent immediately, in as much as we have two reds, two blues outfield players and 2 keepers. Now, where this has an amazing similarity to striker is that the players operate by depressing their head, and there is a spring in the leg that kicks the ball. And you'll see, perhaps this pose is the best one, just how similar it is to striker. Here, when I put the striker player into position, you can see just how similar the scale, the base design, and even the pose of the player is. As well as the 2 red and 2 blue players, we have 2 metal cream-coloured goals and flat cap wearing keepers who are operated by this gorgeous metal rod. Now you can see that this game is in excellent condition. And once again, I have to thank Paul Woosley, who supplied it during the week. The players are still fastened in by these metal clips around their neck. And Michael, I hope you'll understand, it's in far too pristine a condition for me to unwrap it all and place it on the pitch. But the other thing I want to draw your attention to, because it really is rather attractive, I adore the illustrations that surround this box. Their old style, the gorgeous design, and the sense of nostalgia it brings as we see a chap at the kiosk buying his ticket and then handing it in to enter the stadium. One of my favourite bits of box art I've seen in recent times. It really is a stunning set. So thanks to Michael for reminding us about it, and thanks to Paul Woosley for making it available to me. It's going to take pride of place in my German tabletop games collection. Now, one game I can, to some degree, demonstrate for you is this one, which is special request number 3. This is World Champion number 1 Keeper soccer game, and it is a monster. It arrives fundamentally complete in this rather large box. So let's have a look at what we get inside it. We have a rather large 12-sided ball, much as we see with tip kick. The players have names on their shirts. We have Bob, we have Alan, Howard, Steve, all your mates are here, Gordon, and some degree of sponsorship, AMB and Super on the shirts. Now the players are operated by a rod that enables the players to both turn and to move forward and back and kick the ball. Now the much travelled and much loved Howard is in a position in defence to break up the attack if he can and clear the ball. And he's done rather well there. Now, one of the genuinely interesting facets of this game, beyond its large scale, is the operation of the goalkeepers. Now, they work on a rod. That's quite straightforward. But they too can twist and they can dive, reaching all the way to the ground. So these are rather jolly. And let me introduce you to Alex. Now, should the ball get knocked out of play, we have throw-in figures that can be placed along the touchline to take care of the throw-in. The ball is placed in the player's arms and a little flick of the switch and we're back in action. The scoring mechanism is built into the pitch, which is quite useful. Although I've had this game for some while now, we've never got around to playing it. So I promise you, next time there's 2 of us in the studio, we'll get this game on the table and we'll give it a proper game. And we'll film it so you can see the results. It looks like it could be a bit frantic, but also quite interesting. There are a lot of players out there already taking this very seriously. It's very jolly. I love the scale and it's quite robust. That wraps up our first lockdown special. Do remember, if you want to enter the competition to win these 2 rather rare teams, then you need to get your entries in rather sharpish, because all being well, I'm planning to announce the winner in next week's lockdown special number 2. So thank you very much for watching. I'm happy to try and keep the programmes coming if you're happy to watch them. As for going forward, who knows, these are difficult times. Be considerate and patient with family and loved ones we're all feeling the same tensions. And let's hope it's all over soon. With love from us to you. See you again soon.
I got the World Cup edition back in '72. Man, I was king of the hill. Those were the days. Had the guys over and we played all day. I made the final, but I lost 3-0. And those were the days. Those were the days. Yeah, those were the days. Those were the days. Tired of being a grown-up, wanna throw it away. I said, Smithy, let's set up and play.